Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge in the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2023 Zurich Classic. This is my Before the Lock show where I'm going to go over ownership, we're going to talk weather, and I'm going to review my picks again because I had some feedback. The show I did yesterday, I'll state, was not my best of work, but it is the Zurich Classic. But I do want to get you guys clarification on who I'm going with my core plays within my player pool for the DFS side. So I want to do that for you. It's going to be a really quick show, so let's do this. Thanks for stopping by. Give me about 15, 20 minutes, and I'll get you all this information. And let's go talk a little golf. Okay, so real quick, to summarize, again, if you missed the preview show, what is this team event? Of course, starting in 2017, the Zurich Classic was a tournament on the PGA Tour that was an individual player, I think, for like 30 years. And then in 2017, they decided to change the format, went with his teams. And what do you have? You have 80 teams of 2 players each. Typically, they are guys that have played together in this event before, maybe played in QB, or if they want to get in this event and qualified for it, they'll just be matched with somebody that they've never played with before. Typically, those guys do not end up doing very well. What are we looking at? What are they going to be playing? So a little bit like what we see in the Ryder Cup. So each team will do a 4-ball, which is playing your own ball. Whoever gets the best score on that hole, they take that score. And the hopes is that you have a bunch of birdie looks through that. And typically, this is the round that these guys will go low. I showed yesterday on average around shooting a 65, which would be about 7 under against the par 72 here. And then on Friday, they do what I always refer to as alternate shot or foursomes. And what is this? This is where you and your teammate are trying to figure out who's going to hit the drive. And once that happens and the next guy hits the approach, then the next guy's got to hit the chip, and the next guy's got to putt. So you go in a rotation. But once they tee off, now this changes. I believe there's only so many holes that that each guy has to tee off, but they can kind of mix and match that. At least what I remember, it doesn't. Once you tee off, it means that rotation stays through all 18 holes. Okay, hopefully that wasn't confusing. The one thing I say on the preview show was the top 35 teams in ties. What I saw yesterday on the Golf Channel, which actually top 33 teams in ties will make the cut after round 2, which that was a little different than what I've had previous. And you get a similar things if you win just a regular PGA Tour. It counts as a PGA win for both guys. Of course, like I said, I remember I think it was Xander last year when he won with Cantlay. He got this win, and it felt like it kind of kicked off his season to then also get future wins, which was pretty new. We're used to Xander like a fee now coming in second quite a bit. But you get a 2-year PGA Tour exemption, and you also get 400 FedEx points and eligibility into the invitationals. That would be like the Genesis and whatnot. I don't know. It doesn't state if that means also the players, but at least into the invitationals, Bay Hill, all the historical, legendary tournaments, Tigers, and the Arnold Palmer, and then you got the Memorial at Jack's place. Okay, I think that's enough about it. Just wanted to kind of summarize what this thing's all about. And then I touched on this. I haven't got a new weather update yet from the PGA Tour. I was checking. They didn't provide it, but I'll jump into Wind Finder. But long story short, what I've seen through Wind Finder is it looks like for sure the rain is going to come down in the afternoon on Friday. And it looks like almost, now they're stating almost up to an inch. So I'm going to be curious if they get all the golf in on Friday. Thursday looks fine. And I think what I saw on Wind Finder, I believe it shows Saturday, looked okay. It really looked like the issue right now was Friday. And you can kind of see there is going to be quite a bit of wind gusting up in the 20s. And then Saturday is showing right now to be the worst at the 30s. But we'll jump into Wind Finder real fast and take a look at that. See if there's any flight advantages. Tee times are out. And with my picks, I also am providing their tee times and which side they're going off. Because I mentioned also yesterday, specifically from a showdown perspective, nothing to do with the 4-day classic, that I like the guys going off 10 to hit that consecutive birdie bonus, because 18 and I believe hole number 2 are both par 5s. And then you have a pretty mid-easy par 4 to start on hole number 1. Okay, so I always typically do this, but depending on the show, I don't always put a very visual way of talking about my picks, but I think it does help. I think a lot of my community has always said they really like that about me, and not a lot of other golf analysts or whatever really kind of show exactly who they ended up picking. I feel like they talk a lot and talk about the guys they like, but they don't say, hey, here's my top 15 guys, here's my top 20. I always do that for you guys. So I wanted to do it again, even for the Zurich. So here we go. So from an expensive side, the guys at the top, I'm not going to go into all of them, but I'm just going to talk about who I like. I already mentioned, I think we all, even the books, everybody expected Xander and Patrick Cantlay, of course, the also California kids, are the favorites, right? Past champions, and they're here again to win it, both in great form. That was just shown again at the RBC Heritage. So if you're going to pay anything over 10,000, I'm going to go with the guys that I think should win this thing. And then I also stated in the show yesterday that if they don't win it, I do feel like a long shot could hit. This is a format that if one guy goes off in that four ball, or of course the team just do a perfect job. When I say ham and egg, it is, one hole I birdie, but the next hole I double bogey or would have double bogey, but you birdie. If that kind of works back and forth, at least with the four ball, you could definitely go low, at least on Thursday. And then the alternate really averages around shooting par or maybe one under. That's, it's a little more difficult. But if you think about Xander and Patrick off the tee, they both like to hit the draw. They could both hit the fade. But also, like, if you think of Homa, the Homakawa, Morikawa, and Homa, they both like to hit the fade. So that does help an alternate shot. Typically you're going to be in the kind of same areas. And then also you try to match guys that hit the ball off the tee. Sometimes it doesn't work so well. If a guy hits a 330 and he's playing with a guy that hits a 280, he's not used to hitting, from those distances as much. I'm not saying it's a huge disadvantage. All these guys are pros. They're all pretty amazing. But I'm just saying it is nice that, if you can match a team like with Xander and Patrick again, both hit it about 300, a little over off the tee. All right, so that's my number one team. My second team in would be Soo Kim and Tom Kim. Now, I feel like these guys haven't been the elite form lately, but they've played, great golf. They both have, Siwoo won earlier this year. Tom Kim won in the fall. But both their games are very similar. We also saw what they did in the President's Cup, beating, actually, funny enough, Xander and Patrick Cantlay in the team event. So, not saying that's what it is, but we know they got team chemistry. I think they'll get up for this. And both these guys you'll see here are going off the number one at 144. And kind of funny, I noticed a lot of my picks are the later tee time picks, which actually from a weather perspective looks like if there is an advantage, this would be at least for Thursday, Friday, would be the afternoon. It would be the PM, AM, or the late flight, if you want to call it. And they're at 9,700. So that right there is the guys that, from my expensive costs that I'll be building a lot of lineups with in DFS. And then kind of the next tier in, still around the 9,000 range. Funny enough, and these guys, I think we're even grouped together again, going off, pretty much after Xander and this crew, is at 157. I mentioned the first bet I made was Taylor Montgomery and Kurt Kitayama. Taylor Montgomery is just amazing on how this guy scores. He's not the best. He's not the most accurate. He's got distance, but not the greatest irons. But Kurt Kitayama, I feel like, is an amazing ball striker. And we saw what he did on Bermuda, of course, winning the Arnold Palmer. Not a bad putter in short game either. So I really like this group at 9,100. They were kind of, like I said, my betting favorite if somehow Xander didn't go in or didn't win. And then, of course, Denny McCarthy and Joel Damon. Both kind of similar games. They don't hit it really far off the tee, but very accurate typically. The ball striking is good. Joel Damon kind of falls apart typically with the putter, can get hot with the putter, but can also fall apart. Also, Joel Damon won in some very windy conditions, his one PGA victory. And Denny McCarthy, of course, one of the elite putters on tours. So I like those teams, and that would be my top four teams going in. So a lot of the builds would be, maybe Xander, then the Montgomery, or Siwoo and the Denny. That would be kind of how I start my builds. And one thing I was going to say, which I thought was interesting, from a lineup perspective, you used to be able to, in some of these kind of, like the President's Cup that you were be able to play on a DFS, you could literally take Siwoo Kim and Tom Kim. What I noticed yesterday as I was starting to do some builds is that you cannot take both guys from, you got to take one guy from the team. You get the whole team. You get, all the points, no matter who scores the points. And you can't take both guys from the team. Just side note, hence why they're the same price and not different prices. All right, moving down to the mid-range picks. So these guys will be more in the 8,000 range. Teams that I will be going with quite a bit. And I mentioned Neesmith and Taylor Moore played in this a couple times, have had good showings. Taylor Moore, of course, just won the Valspar. Neesmith, funny enough, should have won the Valspar, but I think ended up third, his best finish. Great ball striker, typically not the greatest with the putter. I feel like Taylor Moore's game is better with the putter and around the green. But these guys must have some, past history through the Corn Ferry. They've played this before, and at 8,700, I like them. They are actually a morning tee time. And then I talked about Doc Redman and Sam Ryder at 8,300. They played this quite a few times and have had really good showings. Doc Redman's game has been pretty suspicious for a while. Literally the last, I think he got contended. He's had some showings. I think it was at the Valspar or the Valera. I forget which one. I think it was Valspar. But Sam Ryder, of course, had a chance at Waste Management. We've been kind of waiting for him to get a win. And I'd say, Sam Ryder's skill set is more around the green and putting, where Doc Redman typically is a better ball striker but can struggle with the putter. And of course, he kind of came on the scene with the Rocket Mortgage when Nate Lashley won. He came in second. But these guys have played quite a bit together. So both teams have had experience in this, on this course, in this event, and have both, top fived in the previous years. And then my next team in, kind of a newbie, would be Ryan Gerard. I talked about these guys yesterday, and Ben Griffin. Ben Griffin's just playing really solid golf. Ryan Gerard showed up at the Honda as a Monday qualifier and has made 4 of his last 5 cuts. And they're actually another late time, tee time 236, and cost at $8,000. And then I mentioned yesterday, I noticed the Canadian teams typically have not fared that well in this event, but I really like this pairing of Adam Hadwin and Nick Taylor. I'd say Nick Taylor's probably been in better form than Adam Hadwin, but he's got a complete game. Again, both hit fairways. They're both not super long, but have a very similar skill set. They're actually a morning tee time, but going off number 1 at 8,500. So that's my mid-range pick. So I'm giving you technically 12 teams that I'm going to be playing the most. And then last but not least, the cheapy team picks. Some of these have actually changed. I was kind of all over on this, but I kind of did a little more diving. And with these guys, I'm looking for the upside guys that can, really score. And so I ended up on, Benoit and SH Cam, as I was kind of looking at the analysis yesterday, kind of fell on this group. And they go, they're a late tee time, 7,100 going off that backside. Probably a team that I'll play in the showdown side, and maybe even these guys too with Akshay and Harry Hall. Kind of interesting. They must, I don't know if they were just put together, because typically, Harry being from England, maybe Akshay, as far as I know, did not play a lot on the European Tour, the DP World Tour, where Harry Hall has kind of, making his transition. But they also have an afternoon tee time, 7,600. And I think the upside with these guys is quite high. Again, not a bad showdown team, but a good fillers. Like I said, could go off. They could also easily, as we get into these, they could all miss the cut that we're talking about. But, of course, we're getting a little more volatility as you get down on price tag. And then the last guys in the 6,000 range that I'll be going with, funny enough, is Team Australia across the board at 250. And this is where some of the changes came in now. I already talked about Greg Chalmers and Cameron Percy. I don't think a lot of people are going to play them. For 6,200, though, it opens up a lot of options in your lineup, and I believe both these guys can make the cut. They've played this event quite a few times together, and Cameron Percy, I've talked about in length, that he's always 60, 100 or bare min, but, he makes a ton of cuts. And if you were trying to build that, really strong upper lineup and want a guy, for a 6-6, I always say, hey, take a look at Cameron Percy. Also, Greg Chalmers has been making cuts recently. And then over here, Aaron Badley, funny enough, has really picked up his game. Always known as one of the better putters on tour. Of course, has been on tour forever. And then playing with the rookie Harrison Endicott, showed he's had a couple good finishes, even on the vacation swing courses. Also 6,600. And both these guys are going off in the afternoon at 249 and both going off the backside. And again, just side note, there was a different tee time between these guys. And that's it. So hopefully that gives a very clarifying understanding of the guys that I'm picking. Really, the only main change would be, I think, Akshay's team and Aaron Badley were the two that I really was on. I think I was looking at Zach Johnson and Stricker, and I think that's a safe play. I think those guys could do well. The only problem is I don't think they have that upside, at the possibility to top 5. I think they can get you to the weekend, but I'd rather go with guys I decided just upside play. And also, the Australian guys, is going to be a bit of win. Not saying, all professionals know how to hit a knockdown shot, but are you more comfortable with it? Of course, there's a ton of sand, and typically Australians are very good out of the sand. So other little narrative side reasons why I went more with an Australian base than the cheapy side. Okay, let me jump real quick over to Windfinder just so we can take a look at that. I also have ownership projections that's changed a little bit. We have a little more data now, and then I'll get you guys out of here. Okay, so jump over to Fantasy National, and as always, I highly recommend this tool for anything you're doing when you're putting dollars on betting or DFS. There's my plug. And so, yeah, I think yesterday, funny enough, I showed, Eduardo Molinari. For some reason, I don't know if that was an issue or maybe just whoever built their lineups and pumped them in here just kind of skewed it. But right now we've got, over sort of 1,700, we'll say 1,700 actual generated lineups coming out of Fantasy National into DraftKings. And that's a better understanding. It's still typically like 3,000. But again, I just don't think there's going to be that much activity in this event. And very, what we were kind of expected. Xander, by far, their team is at 35%. So right there, if you make that change and went with a Burns and Billy Ho, or pivoted, Homa, where they're at 16%, you know, right there, if somehow Xander and Patrick either have a bad showing or don't make the cut, then you've already kind of got to go. And again, we're talking about GPP, the large 200K game, mass entry. Ben Griffin was one of my picks, and I don't know if these stars actually represent my picks, but because I don't see Ben Griffin, but I like the team of Ben Griffin. Is next. There's Sahith. I think with Horgaard and Olesen that they're going to be kind of I don't know. I think a lot of people are going to play him just from a sexy pick. Who knows how that works out? Davis, Riley, I just feel like that team just really didn't do it for me, and Riley's been kind of in a funk. There's another European squad. The Luke Donald Molinari still up there. Ben Martin, it's funny. I was thinking that was with Brendan Wood. I apologize. It's actually one of you guys tweeted out, hey, it's Chesson Hadley, and that is correct. So I'm off the Ben Martin. Not a big fan of Chesson Hadley in his game. I'll just kind of scroll down slowly so you can see, somewhere these guys. There's SH and Benoit Ann at 10%. This is kind of interesting. Not as much. Under 10%, one of my favorite teams, and maybe it totally goes bust, but the Taylor Montgomery team. Try to see if there's anybody down here that's low. There's that Sam Saunders, Eric Cole. That was one team I mentioned I thought I was going to be on, but more I thought about it, I just, again, for the lower price, not saying I won't play them, but I'm looking for a little more upside when I'm down there. There's that Harris Endicott, and Badley is at less than 2%. So I'll get a little differentiation there. And I was trying to see where my other Australian buddies came in, and it only showing one name, which represents both. So I'm going to have to do it this way real quick. See, Chalmers, he's not the one. So Percy must be the one that they're, okay. Yeah, they're kind of highly owned. I think a lot of people see what I see, that they're not a bad get you through at less than 7%. But funny enough, the team that I guess I would get the most leverage on would be the Aaron Badley crew. Okay, I think that's enough. I think you got a pretty good understanding. And like I said, I told you this ownership is going to fall very heavy on like the top 5-6 teams. And then I think it'll be pretty spread out from there. I think everybody's going to have their favorites. All right, real quick weather, and then let's get out of here. So I mentioned yesterday, again, if you are doing Showdown is about the only, or if you're trying to figure out the flight advantage, just to make sure if there is an advantage, especially because the harder weather that I see on Friday is going to be in the hardest format, which is alternate shot. But again, you're going to want to use Windfinder and Bayou Gouch, I don't know how you pronounce that, is what you're going to want to pull up. That's the closest location through Windfinder to the course, and it looks, within a mile or two, pretty close. And we'll skip Wednesday, and I'm looking at Super Forecast, which you're going to want to click on that. If you can see further out if you click Forecast, but you really don't get into the details of hour by hour, which will help you kind of understand. So Thursday, of course, in the morning, the guys will have a little bit of advantage as the winds will pick up in the afternoon as typical, but sunny in the 70s, 80s, so no issues. I don't think there's a huge advantage there. But what I did notice, and that's funny because literally this changed since I last just looked at it, was showing that the rain was going to come in somewhere around, I thought it was like 1, 2 o'clock. But look at 2 o'clock. So that is saying that is going to be, gust up to 40. That's a whole different ball game. So that for sure tells me guys in the afternoon should have an advantage. A little bit of rain is nothing, but man, if those winds get up like that. But it's kind of funny at 2 o'clock, maybe that's when the storm blows in. Hence, there could be lightning, and it doesn't even matter. And we see this all the time, right, with these delays that you think you're going to be, maybe getting an advantage, and then they, delay it, and they kick it off the next day, and, it doesn't matter. But I'm still going to build probably quite a bit of teams going PM, AM, just to let you know. Okay, so I appreciate it. That was it. I wanted to do a really quick kind of cleanup show. I tried to get through so much information yesterday and do one show, and it just, I don't think it went off that well, to be honest. And so I think this show did a little better job clarifying at least a little more on the format if you are interested. but more on who I'm picking and why. I didn't get into super, analyst detail, but if you want to go through that, you can watch the show yesterday. All right, as always, do me the honor, click that like button, share this with anybody else, subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and follow me on Twitter for any updates on who's withdrawing or anything that I see, and of course anecdotes too. I will tweet out. And enjoy the Zurich. It is a different format. I'm just kind of excited to see what walk-up music the different teams pick. That's always kind of fun. I mean, it's meant to be a fun event. Of course, guys are going to take it somewhat serious, especially if typically you're not in the elevated events and somehow your team could pull out a victory here. That's huge to get that exemption and the invites. Like for a lower level team, if you want to say, or a higher odd team, I think, have got the most to win at this event. So we'll see how that all plays out. All right, enjoy the weekend, guys. I'll talk to you next week where I believe we'll be covering the Mexico Open off the top of my head. All right, take care.